Well, hello, lovely listeners. Welcome, viewers. Today, very excited, I have Victoria Rixon, formerly known, can I say it? No,
Oh,
I can't say it at all. Right. Formerly known as something else. But Victoria used to be a midwife. And prior to that, has been in the corporate world as sales and events management. But more recently, until last year, she was a midwife and she walked out on the 7th of February 2024, and she'd had enough, and they knew that she was going to tell her story. But they kept her in for another 2 months. They paid her for another 2 months and paid her a notice so they could sort of delay the inevitable. But as Victoria's just told me off camera, she was very clever about how she did things. So I, for one, am very excited excited. I don't know if that's the right word because obviously what you've seen and witnessed and all the rest of it, it's shite, right? However, I'm excited that somebody has got the balls to actually speak out, especially about what's been going on in our so-called health service. So welcome, Victoria. It's amazing to have you.
thank you so much. We got there in the end.
We did. So I would love to know, really what I suppose what got you into midwifery, because I know you've got four boys, which you just told me off there. And I said she doesn't look old enough. And then she was telling me her beauty secrets, castor oil again. So what sort of got you from corporate into midwifery? And then obviously what happened next? So
Yeah,
over to you really, and I'll ask some questions as we go through.
brilliant. Thanks for having me, Mel. It's great to be here. Um, well, I was a mum of two at the time, and I went on and had a home birth in 2011. And that home birth was, I can't even describe it other than I was always a little bit spiritual. I was always intrigued by, tarot or mediumship and things like that. But I never really quite, I looked externally for that and I didn't quite realize how much that was part of our actual being. So when I decided to have a home birth, it just came off, I'm having a home birth. I didn't even consider it. It was like something took over. When I gave birth to my son at home, it was completely different to the two previous births. So I was able to birth in my living room. I was able to be in my own environment. It was summer, so I had the windows open. The midwife came in and cranked the heating up, and I was like, no, 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 my environment. I don't want the heating up, so I turned it down. And I just birthed, and I don't remember it being as painful. It was like this is not as painful, and it was so much calmer. So when I actually was laboring in the living room, I then sat upright and I went, oh, I think I'm fully dilated. Now, I'd never known previously if I was fully dilated because I was in a hospital environment. I was waiting for them to tell me. But in my home, I was able to connect to myself and I knew. And the midwife said, I think you are. So off I went to go to the toilet and, move about. And I came back and I remember looking around. I went into the kitchen because I put some muffins in the oven. And I went into the living room and I thought, oh, well, where am I going to birth? So I went, oh, I'm going to birth over there. And I squatted by the sofa and I was in between my husband's legs at the time. And I gave birth to my beautiful son. And it was painless. I couldn't believe how painless it was. And it wasn't just that. What happened was I remember watching myself from the corner of the room. So it's like I detached from my body, like an outer body experience. And I was watching myself holding my baby and giving birth. It was the most incredible, profound experience. I could almost picture it still now. And then after that, when I looked back over to the sofa where I was sitting and had just given birth, I thought, wow. And I honored her, that girl that was just there that just get birthed that baby out. But I hadn't realized it was me. It was like I'd left a part of me, like an initiation, like a ritual almost. It was so incredible. And I went, I want to be a midwife. I want to give that to every woman. And I never, ever, ever did it.
You never did. You never
I
did.
was never did I attend. I attended a couple of home births. I was more scared because the fear of litigation, the system had suppressed me so much that when I went home to a home birth, I was actually so uncomfortable and scared. So I became a feared midwife of what if something happens? We're so far from the hospital. I'd completely detached from that woman that gave birth 6 years before. I couldn't believe how much in those 6 years they had suppressed me as a woman in my belief to give birth and medicalized it, that actually I became a high risk midwife that was giving antibiotics, that was inducing women, that was forcing birth, that had women on their back. I made all the wrong decisions. And I couldn't believe until COVID hit and my own health changed because I got diabetes in my first year as a midwife. I thought, what have I done? What am I doing? And it just woke me up. My brain opened up and everything flooded in, and then I'm here today.
Wow.
Mm.
So just talk a little into those 6 years then, because you went from this floaty spiritual experience to doing the complete opposite. Just give us a couple of insights as to why you got to that point.
The NHS is a dark entity. If we know about vibrational energy, the NHS is a dark energy. The amount of people that walk into hospitals and hate it, become anxious, is a clear sign of that. It was actually at uni, it was this suppressed, sit down, 9 to 5, learn this, learn this, learn this. You will learn this by the book. None of it was about connection. None of it was about nurturing the family and the community. It was all about what you don't get wrong so you don't go in jail. That's what it pretty much was like.
Right.
Because I'd had an extensive employment history, I never really bonded with the people the way that I had with old jobs, because it's not the same entity. These are not the same contract laws. They're monsters. They're a dark entity. And I think at uni, when I started realizing the bullying amongst the lecturers, I mean, one of my lecturers said she was going to clip my wings because I was far too confident. I wasn't confident in midwifery. I was a novice, but I was confident as a woman in birth. I'd done it 3 times. That was pushed out of me. You will not use that here. There's no place for it. You will only do our birth.
Wow.
And so when you then top that on top of, put it on top, all the years that you're then in those job roles and students are silenced, don't do this, don't do that, because you get pulled up to the NMC. I was up against the midwives all the time. I was battling with the lecturers all the time, and I actually became scared once. I was driving to the airport near me at Exeter to pick up my son. When I drove there, somebody overtook me, but they cut in and nearly bloody killed us both. So I went to, and then I thought, oh, that might be a lecturer and they might sack me. It's exactly what I did. It was ridiculous. And yeah, before I went into midwifery, I was this. I would not let anybody have any injustice. I can't bear injustice.
Yeah.
But I lost all of it. I was an absolute shell of myself. I'm disappointed in myself that I allowed myself for that to happen to me. I gave up on her. Now she's here. I make a promise. I will never give up on her ever again.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be too disappointed with yourself. I hope you've let that go, because, we all have our lows and highs and all the rest of it. So absolutely. Okay, so what basically then, what got you to a point of wanting to walk out and become basically a whistleblower? What have you experienced in the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, it's been 10 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, when I look back at volunteering as a breastfeed supporter, my very first day was a Sunday. I think it was about it might have been 2011, early 2012. And I remember a midwife crying in the cupboard, don't do it. Don't become a midwife. It's horrendous. And she was crying and she was older. I'll never forget her face. She wasn't there when I qualified, but I remember her well. And just I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was really hard. You're just firefighting as a midwife, and you're not midwife. If you actually look at what midwifery really is, it's about holding space for women, allowing them to make their decision about their birth and their rights in their life, no matter what the outcome. If she wants to birth with the dolphins, let her. If she wants to birth in her garden, let her. Your role is to hold space, not to then do a social care referral because you don't agree with her choice and put fear on her. This is what's happening. And I don't agree with that. I never have. I don't care if you want to breastfeed or bottle feed. I don't care if you want to birth on all fours or birth up in the sky. It's your choice, because I don't like anyone telling me what to do. So why should I tell anybody what to do? So really what I was seeing was things like unsafe practice, raising those concerns. Managers were unsafe. in their own practice. You would have above and beyond your numbers on the ward that are safe, and above and beyond your numbers in community that were safe. It didn't matter where you worked. You were trying to escape. If you knew it was going to be terrible, you would try and escape to the other area, and then you'd get told, no, you can't pick where you want to work. It's our way. So then everyone was really anxious, and everyone, you wouldn't believe it. I worked there for 10 years, and I can't tell you, other than two people, I can't tell you anybody else's birthday or their children's names. They're like strangers because the system is like an ant colony. You're just on these walls like little ants running around, and there's no relationship, but there's a big mother ship at the top, like a big mother ant, just dictating to you and scaring you. It's just horrendous. So if I give you an example of my last shift, this is just the tipping point. On labour ward, we used to have about 8 to 10 midwives a shift. There were two on that day that I went to work. And that had been going on for about 5 months. And it was unsustainable and it was frightening. And I'm not an anxious person, and I was having complete panic going to work. And as I got out my car and walked to the building, I would shrink in my demeanor because I was like, oh my God, what's coming? And I told my boss that, and she said to me, is that a you problem or ours?
Oh.
I'm not resilient enough, am I? So what then happened on that shift was I walked in and triage was really busy. I walked into the labour ward, and as soon as that door shuts, you're like, is this it? It's just the manager and two of us. And there was a student. She's not in the numbers. And labour ward was really busy. There was about 5 patients on the ward, I think, if I remember rightly. I remember there was more than what we had in numbers. There was also about 7 cesarean sections for the day. There was a morning and afternoon list. And the ward was heaving. Beds were blocked. We couldn't get people moving. We couldn't get patients shifted out. And then there was a list of induction of labours. And all I was feeling was, why am I, little old me, in Plymouth carrying this system on £22 an hour? Why? Why am I doing it? I don't have to do this. But I don't want to go because it's an ego thing. I'm a midwife. I want people to know I've not failed. I'm attached into that ego side of it. And I thought, I've got to let this go. I've really got to start letting this go. So on my shift, I had a lady crying in triage at about 7:10 when I came in, and she'd been there for some time, maybe about half an hour. She was still there at 5 p.m. crying, in pain, alone, high risk, no pain relief, no nurture, no love, no that space, hold space. You're okay, none of that. And there's a bigger story to that, which I'm going to write into my book. But she eventually came down to the ward. I grabbed her, pulled her down. I was adamant. I couldn't stop thinking about her all day. And I knew there was something not right with her and her baby and the way that the care was being delivered. And I was saying to my boss, why are we not telling anybody? She's like, what can we do? What can we do, Vic? We can't do anything. And I'm like, but that's how people die when you say those things.
Yeah.
Like you're choosing who's living and who's dying and who's getting all of this care. And I'm thinking, oh, you're the problem. That's what we see in all the other failings in the hospital where they don't speak up because they normalize it in a practice. I'm never going to be you, and I never will be you. And I felt like she's always been up here and I've been down here. And that day I felt like I did that. And I went up and I brought the patient down. Not even half an hour later, her baby was born in my arms, completely compromised, had no heart rate. It was terrible. She had full-on neonatal resuscitation. Intubation was having the lot. It was awful. And this family had to watch. And then the mum just went, what could I have done different? Did I harm her? And I'm like, oh my God, no. And you will not carry that. You will not carry that. And again, that day I like drifted out of my body and I was watching the room, like assessing, I was in shock. Like, what have we become and what are we becoming? And we are going to be more conveyor. We're going to be Nottingham in a minute. I could be Lucy Letby. I could be anyone. It just was horrendous. And then after that, I day text. I did a post about that today. I day text that this was a severe outcome. A mother laboured all that time. The baby went to NICU and the hospital downgraded it to a mild.
What's day text?
A day text is an internal incident report that goes to lots of managers and then they have to investigate. But if it's severe, it normally would go to some sort of litigation, perhaps. But why isn't she severe? So they downgraded it to a mild in their eyes. not caring that that is not mild to the woman, because in her eyes it was severe. And I think just over the whole period, I was just realizing this has been going on a lot longer than probably I see, because it's 2 shifts a week I work. But this was becoming unsustainable. So not only that, staffing is at an all-time low, sickness was at an all-time high, baby deaths were at an all-time high. I soon realized the COVID vaccines. I had 2 vaccines myself, but I knew with all the baby deaths and no COVID, there was no real sort of awareness of COVID being as bad as we were made to believe. And my brain just started critically analysing, well, isn't it interesting? Every single one of these women's had a vaccine, or multiple, 3 to 4. Sometimes I've had 5 boosters. I'm thinking, what is going, not 5 boosters, but 5 jabs in total. And I'm thinking, I don't think people are clocking this. And I think just all of it flooded in. It was literally like an epiphany. I opened up one little hole and I just, yeah, that was it.
So how do you know that? So basically, what you're saying is the women that were struggling and having problems were all vaccinated. Is that what you mean?
I did not meet one woman that was not COVID vaccinated, ever. It's part of your risk assessment when you're asking people and you see them, have you had any vaccines? And I write an S bar on it. So how many vaccines have you had? Every single one of them had a minimum of 2. And it just wasn't rocket science for me. And we had an increase in blood pressure issues, an increase in bleeding in pregnancy, an increase of abruptions, an increase in postnatal bleeding. It wasn't difficult. This people saying this was long COVID. I'm not saying that people aren't suffering from these things, because I know that they are, and they might not have had vaccines, but it made sense. And then when I started looking into the research and looking at actually the pregnant women were the trial, they were the experiment, that's what made me realize. Now, I actually was a little bit smarter. I looked up online about people, about what was going on in the world after, because I'd only ever used Facebook and it was heavily censored. So I went to places like X, I Googled some things. Then I started thinking, why would these doctors in the UK start raising concerns about, like, Sam White, Dr. Cartland? Why would they all start talking about vaccines being unsafe? They wouldn't do that and put themselves through this. So before I left, I kept the vaccine thing very, very, very to myself, because I had enough about safety. And actually, women are scared because the majority of women obviously took this vaccine. So for me to not go out and scare them all wasn't difficult. I never had a vaccine after that. My boss came up to me on the ward with a flu jab and was like, "You need your flu jab, you're high risk." I was like, "Don't put that near me." "Oh, but you can get a bacon roll if you take it."
What?
Like, I was like, no. And I refused all the vaccines after the second one. And I think for me, it took me a long time to actually accept that they have murdered potentially pregnant women and babies. It's absolutely harrowing to even say those words in our modern day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We obviously when they started to be rolled out, this podcast might get taken down. Because I had a Matt Letizia one and he was talking about the jibber jab, and I had to edit that and put it back up. So so just pre-warn. Yeah, we obviously started to hear that not only are these jabs doing something to fertility, but they're also the stillbirths were going through the roof. I'm not in the system. I don't know anybody that is. I have an old friend that was a midwife. We don't speak now, and I know she's left it, but I have no idea why. I'm guessing it all got too much. But she definitely wasn't on the same page as me in terms of how I see the world, for sure. But yeah, so I didn't have any first-hand experience, but you're basically saying that you saw that yourself, those stillbirths and everything going up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would normally see maybe one stillbirth a month on average, and I would look after a lot of women that had loss. I'm a little bit older, I can cope with it. I'm a deeply empathetic person, so I'm comfortable in those environments. And there were a selected few midwives that could cope in those environments. Don't get me wrong, I would cry out on my way home, and I'd come home and hold my babies a lot tighter. And you don't forget some of those women. there's sometimes too many to remember all of them, but there's some women that will stay here like forever and their babies. And the dates, I don't forget the dates. I've got some love hearts on my calendar, and those are the days I light my candles. And I remember those babies. But all of a sudden, it felt like we had every shift. There was some loss or preterm birth, and they were in these rooms that we used for stillbirth. And I've heard recently that a couple of my colleagues have been saying, I can't believe she's doing this, and it's not about them. I'm sorry, it's not about you. This is about our grandchildren and our children and their children. And that the whole time you gatekeep this, you're the problem. I'm not here to make friends now. I've realized I'm here on a mission. I've got to get this out there. And obviously, the threats that I've received and what's happened after is proof that I'm close to the target.
Yeah.
You know,
Who are the threats coming from?
the hospital.
And what kind of threats can you say?
Yeah, so I when I first left, I started a movement called the With Women Movement. I don't use that anymore. And I sent an exit interview to the CEO of the hospital detailing all of this. I also sent that to every MP. Local MPs, I wrote, I've got a copy of it, it's on my Twitter, and it says, just so you know, I'm midwife, I'm leaving this hospital due to not because I'm not resilient, but because this is criminal harm and manslaughter. No response. I sent all of that to the NMC, the governing body, the union. They're not interested. I've realised they're the ones that are actually, it's planned. You're on a puppet. If it works, why would they change it? It's working for them for whatever sick reason. So what happened was I did my exit interview with a lovely girl, and she was like that at me. I don't know where to go with this. And I was like, well, that's the problem. You should be going to the police.
Yeah.
I went to the police. Obviously, they weren't interested because it's a civil matter.
Oh, yeah.
Civil matter. So
Awesome.
she
Yeah.
didn't even she didn't even know what to do with all this information. She said, I don't even know where to put this. And I'm like, in an envelope to everybody. So after that, I got an email from one of the CEO's PA saying, hi, we'd like to meet with you. And I thought genuinely in my naive brain, oh, I've had my exit interview. They must have mixed up the dates. They mustn't have corresponded with each other, that I'd already had my exit interview. So I just didn't turn up. Then I got another notification because my absence. They were like, we'd really like to meet with you. And I was thinking, oh, okay. So I went along, and this director was on there. And to be honest, he was very pleasant, trying to listen and work out what I was doing, gathering in all the evidence and information. And I said, I'm whistleblowing to the public about the safety, da 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 da. And I basically was just saying to him, it's dangerous and it's all this. And then he went, you do know, people go missing overnight.
Wow.
And I thought, I've just been telling you I'm a whistleblower, and you say people go missing overnight, whistleblower, however you want to interpret it. But yeah, so I tried to continue as normal. And then when I finished, I emailed him a few weeks later saying, hi, I'd like to talk to the just to prove to him I have no fear of him whatsoever. And I continued. But then 4 weeks later, I got a statement was made about me online that I was responsible for the death of a baby. They named my hospital and named the family and the baby.
When was
So
that?
that was last March.
So just after you'd walked out, basically.
And I was still in my notice period. So I went back to the hospital and said, what are you going to do about this? This is defamation. I wasn't responsible. You know the truth. Why aren't you making a statement? They told me to ignore it. They told me not to engage.
Who made the statement?
I don't even want to give her the time of day, to be honest.
Another midwife.
It was a mother. It wasn't the parents, but it was a bereaved mother of a group. And she made it on behalf of the parents. And then two midwives then wrote it about 19 days later. They made their own statement about me. Yeah, it was tough. It was really tough at the time. I mean, you can't help but go through the motions of how can I have an exemplary record, no NMC referrals, no complaints at work that I know of, that's never been brought to my attention. I got nominated as a people's champion. I founded a diabetes network group that went from 0 to 90 people in the southwest area to support staff with diabetes. I'm a union representative for GMB, How can I go from that to being a baby killer? It was horrendous. You should have seen the comments. Oh my God, it was awful. I had to come off everything. I was absolutely traumatized. And then I became really fearful. The police weren't interested, even though this was actually a hate crime. It was like a enticed hate crime. But the hospital, to be honest, they were great. Like I had responses from every person saying, this is not you. They're talking about somebody else. So it was really tough. But you
Well,
spend all year. So
I don't get why this woman, who was a mother, did this. Was she put up to it? You don't.
ex-Tory.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know the motive. I tried to reach out, but she didn't want to speak to me. But I don't want to give them the time of day because it feeds them.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about this from the sense of I'm a midwife with an exemplary record. I've clearly got the understanding and the courage to stand here and tell the world. And I've had to fight off all of that. So obviously just spending a year, I can understand when people say why Lucy Letby wrote I might have killed a baby because I actually went into a place of, did I do something and
Did
I've
I?
forgotten it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did I, did I, did I do something and then I've blocked it out? It was horrendous now. It was horrendous. But
Mm.
actually, I realised with all the evidence I've obtained now that no, it's been really tough.
So when did all that get squashed? Has it been squashed?
No, it's in the proceedings now. So I've just submitted proceedings to the court on Wednesday. Yeah,
Right.
High Court of Justice. It will be defamation in London.
Right. So you're taking them
Yes,
for defamation, but in terms of the accusation that you killed a baby, did that just go away?
they've deleted it. It's been deleted. I don't know when it was deleted because I actually struggled to look at it.
Yeah.
But now, every day I'm literally like a champion show horse. I'm just like jumping every hurdle every day at the moment because there's a lot coming at me, and I'm okay with that. I can deal with it because I'm not attached to any of it. If it all gets shut down, I might have saved one life. Fine, I'll start again.
And you mentioned the High Court. Did it start in the High Court or have you taken it straight there?
It only goes there. Defamation
Does
only
it?
goes there.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
And
it's part.
how's your husband with all of this?
He's been great, but he did say yesterday, I just can't wait for our lives to return to normal.
Yeah.
Because I came off the register out of fear. I then started thinking, God, they're gonna put me through a whole fitness to practice and they're gonna take me off the register. And then I feared that the police were going to come and get me. Feared I was going to be arrested because this does. If you've killed a baby, you should be arrested. In my eyes, that those two go hand in hand. Killing someone and police. It's just my brain couldn't get out of it, and it was really really tough. I lost a stone in weight. And I'm not a big girl. I'm not big, and I lost so much weight. I was bad, really bad. And I'm type 1 diabetic, and I didn't take my insulin properly, and I was just so neglecting myself. It was horrendous.
Mm.
Yeah, but I've bounced back.
Yeah. Um, so remind me again, when's it in court? Is there a
We
date?
don't know. I
There is.
won't get a date yet. So, and it's civil proceedings. So, it's not like it's a crime that I can't talk about it. There's no jury. It will just be. But I think this is really important that we highlight that midwives shouldn't be named online by anybody unless they have had a fair trial. I mean, that is the law anyway, but yeah, it's horrendous. So there's been a lot to push past, considering all I'm trying to do is raise concerns that if you have doubts about the NHS, you should be listening to those doubts. They're not hiding it from us. It's all over the internet. I've got midwives now. There's about 5 midwives who are literally at the brink of joining me. They're not ready because they are so scared of this. When they're ready, I would have started an army in a minute. My Twitter has had 7.7 million impressions since the 19th of January because it's people want to know. People, you think birth impacts you, your mother, your grandmother, your children, their children. It ripples through everybody. If you've got a system that is fundamentally flawed, everybody is affected by birth.
Well, of course.
Everybody wants to talk about it.
So your own personal journey, you took the jabs. Did you feel pressured into that? Or did you believe that they were a good thing?
I was scared I was going to die. The newborn, I had a newborn baby. He was actually born the day the first case came out in Wuhan. So I'm hearing, all I could hear was fear, fear, fear. So I made a fear-based decision, not a heart-based love decision about myself. I just trusted. And I've always trusted because I vaccinated all my children. Oh my God, I wish I'd never done any of it.
Yeah. Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. But our union and our governing body stated that everybody had to be vaccinated to protect the vulnerable, and pregnant women were vulnerable. Pregnant women are not vulnerable. When women get pregnant that have an autoimmune disease or have eczema, psoriasis, they glow. It disappears. It's the opposite. Everything they tell you, it's the opposite. So if you're saying your pregnant woman's vulnerable, she is not. She is a force to be reckoned with. She's an incredible being. And it's incredible how they've pushed us all so low within ourselves. Fear, 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 all the time. So that's why people make decisions. It's through fear. It's never through confidence of their own belief.
Yeah. I mean, it's even the way that childbirth is treated in hospitals. You're on your back with your legs up or whatever. You know, you're defying gravity. It's not going to help, is it? Um,
No, and I've got a midwife that told me a story that she watched a doctor put a lady in lithotomy in her legs and stirrups and applied some forceps without pain relief and pulled the baby out of her body. And the woman was screaming. I've seen doctors pin the labias of women to their side of their legs because they can't suture properly. And because you've got blood flow, everything's a little bit more bigger down there and there's a lot more tissue. And it's just disrespectful. I've seen them judge women because they've had a poorer background. I wouldn't get judged because I've got, I'm a different IQ and I've had a different background. And there is this level of, oh, because she's from care leaver, treat her badly. I've seen it all. I've participated in a lot of that myself, remember? So I have um, not done best practice for women in terms of lying on their backs and not necessarily said, because I'm not allowed to, what do you think? And Mel, when we were on the ward and it was so bad, we had women waiting for days. So imagine being pregnant and being told you're going to be induced at 39 weeks because you're high risk. So women go, I'm high risk. I'm high risk. Oh, I'm high risk, mum. Dad, I'm high risk. Oh, husband, I'm high risk. Oh, what does that mean? Fear. Fear. Oh, I've got to be induced at 39 weeks and 2 days because my baby might die. You only get induced because you're reducing the risk of stillbirth. Fact. So what they do is they toddle into the hospital, they get induced, and they think within the next day their baby's going to be born. Because of staffing, their blockages, funding, and all the other issues, some women were waiting a week. So imagine what that does to them. But you told me 39 and 2 that my baby would, what? And now all that goes out the window because the system doesn't allow it to happen, but your baby's still high risk. Could you imagine the pressure in those wards? It was just it was starting to mount like a pressure cooker. And these women were like, my baby's going to die. What's happening? Are we safe? So then the care increased because you had to do more CTG monitoring of the baby. You needed to do more emotional support. You had dads coming out because their girlfriends were at them, like, go and tell them. It was unbelievable. And what did we choose to do? We chose to tell the women the truth. It's really busy. We've got no staff. We've got hardly any staff on labour ward. And what do you think our managers told us? Stop it. You're not allowed to scare people. You don't tell them. That is criminal neglect because you are not giving women a choice to have a safe birth, which means if something happens to them and it's down a line of some medical negligence, that's criminal harm.
would they have been induced or they were waiting to be induced?
So they've been induced. So it's like a conveyor belt. You go to one ward, you get your ProPass in, you go up to the other ward, or you go home and you wait. And then those women are in a queue system. But then obviously someone might come in off the street labouring, so that then pushes her up, takes another midwife. Then you've got a woman on the ward that comes in, has a ProPass, and she now ruptures her membrane. So you're just constantly juggling the induction of labour board and wiping the names off and rejigging the numbers, changing the number system. It's absolute ludicrous. And do you know what our induction of labour rates are?
Oh,
Nearly 50%.
Yeah, it's like, why? Because I mean, I've only had one birth, and I was induced at 36 weeks. Now my son is 25, soon to be 26, so it was a long time ago. Um, and because I was told that he wasn't feeding properly, he was too small for the weeks and all the rest of it, and so high risk. And they had to induce me twice in the end, and I ended up having a cesarean. He didn't want to come out. He weren't ready to come out. He didn't even go into an incubator. He was little. He was 4 pound two, um, but he didn't even go into an incubator or anything. He was absolutely fine, albeit small. And the lazy little git, he didn't want to come out. He wasn't ready to come out.
No,
Do you
but
know what I
also
mean?
your cervix, Mel, is 36 weeks. Your cervix not hasn't got the message that it's ready and ripen and ready to go.
Yeah.
You're forcing. And I was saying it this morning to I spoke to Dr. Jim Thorpe. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's in America. He's absolutely incredible. I had such a beautiful conversation with him the other day, and I was trying to explain to them that over here we use first line drugs for raised blood pressure for hypertension, and obviously the vaccine injury. One of the side effects is kidney problems and blood pressure. So we're then giving all these women labetalol or nifedipine, which is a first line drug. They use nifedipine if they've got contraindications for that, and vice versa. One of those drugs stops uterine activity. It's a blocker. So you're forcing a labour with a woman that's on nifedipine. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
And this is the problem. Medicine actually doesn't make sense. What makes sense is biology.
Yeah.
Biology makes sense.
Yeah.
And I just never understood it. I just couldn't get my head around any of it. And it felt so dark. And I was like, what is going on? And then I'd get an email at 5 o'clock on a Friday night. We need to talk to you next week. It's like, oh, brilliant. Can't wait. So then all weekend you worry that you've caused harm. It's a way to just keep diminishing you. When I saw a couple of my colleagues recently, they said to me, you look like you've got younger. And I'm like, that's because I've got out of there.
Mm.
So I'm like rising in my energy is rising, my frequency. But during COVID, NHS England pushed a model onto maternity services in the middle of a pandemic that was never going to work. And we had babies die in the community because of that.
What was the
And I
model?
handed in my notice then. I handed in my notice, this is dangerous. And I retracted it because they pulled the model. I was so upset. Found the whole thing incredibly traumatizing.
What was the model?
Continuity of carer.
What does that mean?
NHS. So continuity of carer came out of Bill Kirkup's report for Morecambe Bay, which was 2015. So there's a dad called James Titcombe. He's now the patient safety advisor for the UK, works alongside Jeremy Hunt.
It's one word for him.
Tempting. Tempting.
Tempting, very.
A little bit tempting. Anyway, and so that model came out that every woman should have a midwife on continuity. So she should see the same midwife the whole way through, which is important. So that model is so important to bring on board, but they delayed it from 2015 right up to 2020. And you're like, why would you implement it in the middle of a pandemic? Well, it's a mandate. Yes, but we don't have the staffing because we've now got half of the agency staff are earning more money vaccinating. So they will run away over there because they got £10 an hour more for less stress, just
Wow.
standing jabbing people. And you've got half the midwives on restricted leave because they're vulnerable. So we've got all these midwives off, but you implement a model that actually, when you worked it out, midwife per woman per birth length of time, there was never enough midwives, which meant there was going to be huge neglect. So I think between me and another colleague, we had just over 100 women on our caseload for an area. I'm supposed to see all those women from the beginning of their pregnancy all the way through every other week, and then at the end of their pregnancy. So before that model, I would see women all the way through, and then on day 3, day 5, and day 10 postnatally when they'd had their baby. How many postnatal women do you think I saw during that model?
No idea. Two.
Who was seeing them? Not midwives, healthcare assistants, delivering midwifery-led care. So what did we have an increase in? Perineal breakdown of stitches, wound infection. No one's checking uterine height. How do we know her uterus is not infected? You're not looking at the signs of smell. How's her breath? How's she feeling? Does she smell unwell? Because women do give off a smell if they're infected. Who's looking at for the babies? Who's weighing the babies? Who's doing the feeding plans? That's a role of a midwife. So babies died. The parents don't know that. They think their baby just died of something else, but then there was a jaundice problem. This is all covered up. I'm sat there panicking because on the front of all these women's notes was my name. I'm accountable for that whole woman, but yet I couldn't see her past her birth. No, 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 no. So I handed in my notice and I retracted it because they completely shut down the model. They called an extraordinary meeting. You think?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And the problem is, Mel, they always work in a reactive way, never proactive, ever. It's always about what we've learned. What could we do better? They don't mean it because they continue the same patterns. And not one intelligent person in my team thought that we're queuing for the printer in COVID, 2 meters apart, social distancing. However, we're cramming into a theatre and we're cramming into a tiny little baby room where they're delivering their baby and we're all cramming in. Ridiculous. But when you get out that room, just social distance.
Well, it's a bit like walking into a restaurant, putting your mask on, sitting down at a table, and then taking the mask off. I mean, it was made perfect sense, didn't it?
It was, I mean, I conformed to it, but slowly did it all unravel and then it just went poof. But I've got huge admiration for the fact that midwives are staying and it's tough because they you sign up for the job. It's the job and the women and the thought of never delivering a baby on these hands again has been really sad for me. Really, really sad. But I'm not delivering midwifery care. I'm a robot.
Yeah.
And that's not being a midwife. And if you actually look at exit interview, I've put mine online. Do you know what they put down for why I left? Work-life balance. With all of that safety concern, it's constructive dismissal. Horrendous. And it's ongoing.
I'm gonna ask you a tongue-in-cheek question. You never did a dance video, did you?
No.
Good. Do you have any desires, but bearing in mind you've seen the hell that it is, and we hear about the NHS, and then some people have a really good experience, and then some people have a horrendous experience. And if I think back to the last few years, my uncle ended up in a care home, dementia, and literally was like a skeleton within 2 weeks, and had gone. Well, we know what happened, right? My Dazalam mat and all of that. Um, my cousin had a brain aneurysm at 40 and is now learning to walk and talk again, and all of these things. But it's still not dropping in for people, is it? What's been the biggest change in the last 4 years? And people are dying suddenly. Athletes are dropping down dead on their pitch, on their field, whatever it is. Kids, 15, young, fit athletes, 15, having a heart attack. It doesn't make any sense, but people are still not putting the dots together and going, what's been the biggest change in the last few years to create all of this? But we know why, because it's being covered over. And it's the same, in your situation with the NHS. I mean, Keir Starmer's just announced that the NHS is not going to be anymore, right? He's mentioned.
He is the NHS. What's he talking about? It's his,
I,
they're all joined.
well, he's basically saying it's not going to be. I can't remember whether it was he's not going to be free.
Abolished.
It's going to be
Yeah.
abolished. Yeah.
But NHS England is the government. People think they're tiered and they're separate. They're not. They're all one big thing. All the governing bodies, all of the unions, they're all in with the same thing. They're all connected.
Mm.
They're all the people that aren't connected are the people on the ground who are speaking. They're the ones that aren't connected to all of that. Well, some of them. But do you think there's a thing though about accepting that you've taken a vaccine that might kill you? You thought about that? Because that's
Yeah,
quite a big deal.
I have. Yeah, because obviously you feel like a ticking time bomb, and if you put any thought and effort into it, yeah, I get that. I do get that. Um,
My dad's had all the vaccines, but he didn't take them last year. Not because I forced him, I just said, ask the question. If you go to that vaccine centre and the person giving you the needle is about to jab your arm, you need to ask them exactly what's inside that vial, what every ingredient is and does. And if they cannot answer one, You step the hell away and you go and do your own research. And he did exactly that.
Because I didn't know what was in it.
And neither did he,
No.
and neither do I. So I've actually put in my will upstairs the name of the person that vaccinated me because I know them. And that's not because I'm being mean. That's because they don't realize what they did either. None of us did.
No.
I'm very proud I never gave a vaccine. I've never given flu, whooping cough, or COVID. Admittedly, I've given lots of vitamin K, and I've had to really, really dig deep on forgiving myself for that, for lots of things.
That's
Made
newborn.
loads of,
That's newborns, isn't it?
yeah, like really, really tough to learn. Like, my God, Vic, what have you done? And I've sunk into. I mean, I was off work from 2020, late 2020, right up until 2023. I was off work for 370 odd days because I was so aware of what was happening and I was in such despair. And I was sat there at home like for weeks and weeks. I wouldn't go out. And I'm like, this can't be real. This can't be happening. And I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my best friends. I couldn't tell my husband because I all thought they were all going to think I was crazy. It was horrendous. But now I've spoken my truth, I realize there's a whole tribe out there. And I'm like, oh, they're here. Hello. I'm not alone. And my husband now believes me. He's like, oh my God, I knew I didn't want them. I didn't want them. And then everybody's now like, oh, I didn't want them either. And I'm like, oh my God, 78% of the NHS haven't taken the vaccine. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
And one of my colleagues, and I talk about this because it doesn't come from a place of nastiness. It just shows you this whole nepotism issue. She vaccinated all of the staff with the flu vaccine. God knows how many. She was walking around with a tray, all the staff everywhere. And she gave a lot of flu vaccines. And guess what? They were all out of date. So she had to apologize to everybody and then revaccinate them if they wanted it. And you think you did that and you're still in your job. I spoke up about truth and I don't have a job. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, the worst people in all this campaign has not been the general public, it's been the midwives. There is a real systemic evil amongst them.
What do you mean by evil?
They're just so spiteful to each other. They will do anything to get their own way and to stab you in the back. They will never stand beside you as a comrade, ever. Oh, let her go, let her go. Oh, we won't go. Cowards, cowards. And there's lots of groups. And this is why I will never do a group ever again. There's lots of groups that talk day in and day out. It's just a stale, boring old group. It just keeps feeding negativity and fear, but it does nothing. And that's what I've learned. Like, everybody's doing this. You have to actually come out and say, maternity is a crime. And they're all afraid to say that because they've seen what's happened to me. Well, okay, if that's my purpose, I'll deal with it. It's not been easy. I don't go running anymore. I used to run. I don't run. I'm looking over my shoulder at times. Not now, but I was for a year. It was horrific. But you know what, Mel? Now I've realized I've been invited to so many groups. I'm in so many groups. I'm part of so many podcasts now. I'm part of different campaigns. They would be foolish to ever touch me because of how quick it spread. I only came out on the 19th of January after the second time. And I came out with a completely different strategy. And that was we ride at dawn. Just got to go.
Wow. It must have been scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, oh, I feel a bit tearful there. The thought of my children growing up without their mum was really hard. But then I realized the thought of my children not growing up, knowing their mum didn't stick up for their future, was worse. And I realized I hadn't dealt with some trauma, and that's why I couldn't face it and deal with it. So I thought I need to go back and deal with some trauma to be able to come back and deal with what's going to hit me next. And everything that has hit me, I've gone, do you know what? You're right. I've made a mistake. I apologize. Not a problem. Rectified it very quickly because there's no ego anymore. It's all here. It's all truth. When you sit in that presence, that's when you start saving lives.
Yeah.
I've messed up. I didn't realize there was someone, my old name. Not a problem. I'll change it. It's no big deal. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody. I didn't realize it was just a campaign. I just went on and fired the name up there. I've got it wrong and not a problem. So I'm very humble in that respect that I've made lots and lots of mistakes and I want to rectify those quickly, fairly, but also I want to start having some really stark conversations. I've got people asking me, do you want to run for MP? Do you want to join a new campaign? Not really. People are hard work, really hard work. They're hard to please. And we're so divided that we don't actually, I don't actually have the answers. I do believe one of the biggest answers is within ourselves. We have to stop as pregnant women looking externally for the answer. It's all within you. You've just been colluded into this coercion of medicine, and you are part of the experiment. You're the one they write all the reports about. You're the one that they write the evidence about because they can use you statistically. Whereas if you remove yourself from that system, you'll never be a stat. You'll never be part of that system. And if you choose to be, and it's really sad when you think about what's happening.
It's really hard for us outside of the medical profession to understand, like what you've just said there, the women are bitchy, um, and they're led by fear and indoctrination, and you're probably taught the Rockefeller way as opposed to, come on, let's actually look at health properly. Um, but it's still hard, and now that you're out of it and you're standing in your truth and you're speaking your truth, come what may, it must be hard for you to keep looking back and going, Jesus Christ, they're still doing it. They're still in there. They're still not saying anything. How the hell? But from us outside the profession who have never experienced it, Nuremberg 2.0 is mentioned so many times. I was just following orders is not a defense. It never was. And there are so many professionals, doctors, nurses, health assistants, whoever, even lay people, that came out of retirement to go and jab people and all of that without asking what's in this. Um, it's just really hard to get our heads around how, because like my ex-partner, knobhead, and an absolute normie, really, although he did question a couple of things, but he would say, not everybody in the NHS is a paedophile, Mal. Not everybody in the NHS is an arsehole, And I'm like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the people at the top, there's this horrible, nefarious darkness, and that is not just in the NHS, by the way. It's in all organisations, especially government ones. And I said, what I'm saying is, you have a consciousness, you have a brain, you have an intelligence, you have a goodness, you have empathy. Why aren't people going, hang on a minute? The hospitals were empty when COVID was supposed to be at its worst, and I was in one in July in Bath, and it was empty. Apart from there was about, I don't know, 10 people in A&E. The rest of it was empty, and that was when it was all we were all still in lockdown, in some kind of lockdown. Why haven't people, and nurses and doctors dancing and videos going viral and all that sort of stuff, why haven't more professionals gone, what's going on? Why am I here? This isn't right. Putting them on ventilators, which killed them, my dazalam. Why? Do you know the answer to that? Is it just the programming?
Yeah, I mean, so most of the people in the NHS are programmed. That is, unfortunately, the whole system is a program. And 33% of people are programmed fully and will not change. 33% are in between the two, and 33% are like, no way. And all you've got to do is try and get to the people, the 33%, to keep them awake and alert. And the people that are on the fence, they're your audience because they might tip over into the other 33%. And I think because I was always someone that raised concerns, but I did it with dignity. I raised 3 grievances and I was told that how eloquent I dealt with it. I cried a lot because it was really sad and really stressful. You know, Mel, I was working 12 and a half hour shifts as a type 1 diabetic without food or drink most shifts. It was horrific. Before I raised the concerns, I never got a break properly. It was really hard. And you're not thinking cognitively. How
Mm.
can you run on that? But you never hear that in a coroner's court because they dare put a midwife on the stand that's going to tell them, oh, hold on a minute, judge or coroner or whatever. In there, that's what they were doing. And so they don't want you out there because you'll throw them under the bus. So they keep the doctors there who will always stay on the party line. And so I think when you think about it in that way, it takes a lot for someone to change their thinking. But because I already had a life before that, I knew that there were things not right, but I couldn't piece them all together because the system, I've got something on my wall, like I can't share it yet because it's to do with my book. But um, when you look at how many arms I've got off this and how many parts to it, that's what people have got to try and work out. It's not just it's so multifaceted and systemic. You might say, oh, staffing's really bad because we don't get breaks. That's how simple people's minds will work. Whereas I go, well, actually, if you go down this rabbit hole, you'll go here, 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 here. So it took a long time for my brain to bring them all in and for me to go, oh, it all makes sense. It's all run for money. It's
Yeah.
the money. There's nothing in health if you're sick. And I think when people get that, that's when it works. So my colleagues are probably really shocked that I'm actually at this place. And I'm like, she's crazy because I'm completely different. Because when I was in there, I was raising concerns to get the responses that I needed. So I needed the replies so I could use them. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you're going like on an email and banging it out, your boss is just going to ignore you. Sorry, I'm busy. Whereas I was like, can we find out this? And I want to know this and I want to do this. So I'm the type of person that rang up NHS England lead Trixie Macquarie, who implemented that continuity of carer model in the middle of a pandemic and rang her up. I said, if you don't ring me, I'm going to go for constructive dismissal. And she rang me and she was chomping on a boiled egg. And I was like, I don't want to see your teeth and your tongue. She was just grim. And she wasn't professional. Take your women to the beach. I was like, take my women to the beach. Are you ridiculous? Well, in Scarborough or wherever it was, they take their women to the beach. I was like, I can barely get out of the clinic room. What are you talking about? It was ridiculous. They sold you an ideology as a midwife that you'll be back on your bike, giving door to door care. And it wasn't real. It was all just to suck you in the whole thing. And
Wow.
you won't notice COVID if continuity of carer was in your face and it was stressing you out. You wouldn't notice what was going on. So
That's
that's them.
that's why Call the Midwives is still running today, all these years later, to keep it in our minds that that's what midwives are like.
Not true.
Not true.
And that's why you'll find in most people's interviews, they'll say, oh, I love Call the Midwife. And you're like, oh, and like, you know, I said this the other day, I'm not employed to keep the trust's reputation up. I
No.
wasn't employed to toe the party line and I wasn't employed to keep my governing body from the public domain. My role as a midwife is to do no harm and keep people safe. And if I cannot do that, the public need to know about it. And that is as simple as it gets. Whereas my colleagues are the other way. Oh, we mustn't tell anybody because the trust will come and get us. That itself is ludicrous. I mean, I don't. My friends, they've cut me out. They don't. I'm not one of them, but they cut you out. They don't want to talk to you. I'm fine with that. I'm a bit of a loner. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I just get on. I know who I can trust.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in this sort of awareness movement, call it what you want, feel like loners as well. And but gradually, we are finding each other and growing. And there's great solutions coming out of all of that, in not just in the medicine, but in different areas as well. My area seems to be challenging the bullshit legal system and the taxes, the unlawful taxes. That's where I've landed myself.
Me too.
Oh,
You will love this.
go on.
I haven't paid council tax since August. I didn't stop paying. They wouldn't give the documents, so I stopped paying. I'm part of the Sovereign Project. Um, I've done it all. I've had the police at the door, 8th of February, coming for harassment of me, and I just stepped. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Am I under arrest? Are you here to charge me or give me a caution? No, well then you have no jurisdiction, basically. You got to know your rights.
Why did they come to arrest you?
They didn't come to arrest me. I asked them if they came to arrest me. I sent a cease and desist letter to all three defendants saying, stop, stop now. Take these posts down because they proliferated again, you see, because I started a new campaign. It got worse again. And I asked for their addresses under the court proceeding rules because I didn't have a solicitor at the time. I was trying to save costs by doing it myself. So I sent a cease and desist and can you send me your address to two of them? And I got the police at my door because I harassed them. So the police came, I put in a full complaint. I posted the video online. So the police came to my door and that is actually perverting the course of justice. That's not fair. So they tried to intimidate me. I didn't. I filmed it and off they went. Put in a complaint, never heard anything back. Yeah.
Yeah. After the medical profession, those that are turning a blind eye, looking after themselves, not speaking out, knowing exactly what's going on, the police are next in line as far as I'm concerned. Absolute. I'm sure there are still some good ones, but a lot of the good ones have left, especially the older ones, because they've seen what it was to what it is. I've been at some house repossessions to save them and take backs and stuff like that. And yeah, and the police are there to assist the bailiffs. They're not there to stop
As the piece.
breach of the peace. It's absolute bollocks. A guy that helped was there to help me in court last year because I've been made bankrupt by Coventry City Council. I'm just going to call him out now. Fraudulently in my absence, and my guy was being beaten up by 6 to 8 security guards in the court and dragged out. And I called the police, and they said it's a civil matter. I said, "Are you taking the piss? It's GBH." He said it was in a court building. You have to take it up with the court manager. And I went, "You really think they're going to take this seriously? It's their staff." He said, "So you think? So what you're saying is they'll be biased?" I went, "I think they might be." And he said, "Well, I'm sorry, you have to take it up with them first." And of course, I never did.
I've actually been wearing a little camera wherever I go. I put a little camera on. I've been following Pete Wilson's campaign about you go into Tesco and you've got a video and it's got your face on it. You say to the manager with the camera on, "Can I have a copy of that recording?" And if they say no, it's £1,000 fine straight away. Send it to the court. Put up your application for 75 quid and your fees. Shut all this down because they'll have to employ people to trail through hours and hours of videos to get your face. And this is how we shut it down. I've learned a lot in the last year, a lot. And, I get away with it. I just know my rights.
Mm.
But like you say, as soon as you get closer to it, the target, it starts happening. But to take your home away, I've heard that an awful lot. And I don't own a house. I've never wanted to. I rent. I don't pay gas and electricity at the moment because I'm in a dispute with them. They shared my data with someone during a complaints procedure. That's a civil matter. I'll deal with it in the courtroom. So I'm not stupid and I know my rights, but my own employer shared my data. Bearing in mind, if you ring up to see if your daughter was safe, "Hi, my daughter's in. Can you just let me know she's okay?" Because there's no signal. Sorry, I can't confirm or deny they're here. You'll have to call their mobile. That's how strict data protection is. So I've got a worried grandmother at home. So I put the phone down and I always had a sense of guilt, like that's cruel, so cruel. But these people have made up GDPR for a reason. When I left, I had a work car, no contract. It was just picked up online on my online account, no signature. And when I left, I handed back the keys and said, "I don't want it." They sent me to a debt collector without any agreement. There's no third party agreement in any of the terms and conditions. And I'm taking them to court for it. And I've talked about it online. So I can't tell a grandmother that her daughter's safe and her grandchild, but you can send my whole name, address, email, date of birth, and telephone number to Act Credit Management, who I've now got a court date for, who can't produce me with any correspondence whatsoever. That's not okay. You don't get to do that to people. So not only have I had all of that, I've had to deal with that as well.
Jesus Christ. Well,
Disgusting.
fair bloody play to you. So what? So obviously you've got this defamation case that you're waiting on dates on, and I wish you all the very best in that. In terms of what's actually happening in midwifery and the NHS, what are you championing anything else in terms of? I know you're out here doing your podcast and you're writing a book and stuff. Is there anything else that you're involved with that is likely to bring this to a bigger audience?
Yeah, there's some things brewing that I obviously don't want to mention because I've noticed that whenever I do something, I can't talk about it because these people infiltrate those people.
Right,
So
okay.
one of my podcasters messaged me and said, "Oh, I've had a hell of a lot of crap before you come on my show," and I'm like, "Just ignore it. It's sad. I don't go into their lives and do that. It's very peculiar behavior. It's a bit of an obsession, like they're, and this is actually some of them are midwives. They're really like either jealous or just weird. But I am a big advocate here that we have to be very careful that we don't do a maternity inquiry. An independent inquiry, yes, when it's not government run and led and they don't cherry pick the person that does it. We have to be really careful that the Met Police had an inquiry. Did we really get the truth?
Hmm.
We've had a Jersey sex scandal. Did we really get the truth? No. And now we've got all the sex trafficking. Did we really get that truth? So my argument is doing a maternity inquiry means they'll pick a segment because it's too big. And then that segment will take 15 years. And by the time I'm 80, because I'm going to live that long, by the way, by the time I'm 80, they'll probably only be on their third part of it. So there's no justice here. So my argument is we do not need to line the pockets of another midwife who's earning millions doing this and leading it when actually every other maternity inquiry has created more task-based work and not care. There's no care anymore because it's all task, 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 and it's so much going on. So I just think what's going to happen now is I'm not looking too far ahead. I think there's midwives moving up to me now. I've got some followers coming. I think that's going to spark something, and then there might be other things coming. But Mel, we'll have to keep in touch, and I'm sure there's loads. I'll send you my mobile number. We'll keep in touch on WhatsApp,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely. Okay, cool. There was something else that came to my head while you were talking, and it's gone straight back out. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, so I think what I did want to ask you is, are you doing work at the moment other than all this stuff? No, I assumed you weren't because I know what it's like when you're dealing with the legal stuff. It's a fucking full-time job,
Mm.
isn't it?
No, not working. I don't. I think after all of this, I'm so put off ever be. I actually at the moment would not put my hands on a pregnant woman ever again. I feel that traumatized by the whole thing. I've been referred for a bit of PTSD. You know, I'm hearing like I hear that the alarm bell and I panic in days and go, oh my God, I'm going to end up in prison. And it was horrible. It was really awful. My doctor, I'm so lucky I've had the same GP for years. So we're in a small town. And she's like, I can't believe the change in you. I
Mm,
cannot believe it. So she's been the most wonderful support for me. And she's a doctor. So you have that camaraderie of healthcare.
yeah,
So she's like, I cannot believe what you've gone through. So I've got a fantastic GP there that really does support me. But I'm off, I've got disability benefits. I had some PIP because I didn't get out of bed and didn't move my diabetes. I was crippled. But, I'm slowly starting to recover. You can't sit there forever.
mm.
And I'd like to think about work, but I have no idea where to go with that. I just don't know where to go. So,
Well,
yeah.
I think, I mean, I know you're traumatized and everything, but I think setting up a natural birthing place with like-minded midwives is just what people want and people need. Maybe not now, maybe not your baby, pardon the pun. But I think something like that or different centres like that around the country, more and more women will cry out for that sort of thing. Um,
We'll
my
see what.
Yeah, my experience in hospital, and that was 25 years ago, 26 years ago, was not great at all, you know. And I'm sure it was a lot better back then than it is now. So I can only think what these poor women are going through.
Very sad. We've got a real society of trauma, fear, and low energy, and I'm not surprised everybody's sick.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm actually on X. but I don't want to say the name because I'm in the middle of changing the name
Okay.
because I realised I've taken somebody else's name. Didn't realise. So I don't know at
Okay.
the
So
moment.
you're
When
but
I've changed, I'm Victoria Rixon,
yeah.
which means that's what I'm going to change my ex to, Victoria Rixon.
Okay.
That will be my name. So I'm no longer going by a brand. I'm going by my name. Not that I had a brand. I just threw out something on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
internet.
Okay. So I mean, by the time this goes up, we're probably looking at a couple of weeks or so. So
Oh, perfect. Be Victoria Rixon.
so if you just let me have the link, I can stick it in the show notes and everything. So cool. All right. And I like to finish these conversations with anything you feel called to share in these final minutes.
Let's go spontaneous. I normally give this to the women, but I actually want to speak to the midwives. I want to say to the midwives that you have a choice. You have a choice to either turn up to work every day miserable and anxious and scared and stay there because of probably two reasons: money and another job. And their material, they mean nothing, their substance. And it has no substance, it has no real credibility when you are delivering the care that the system is expecting, which is substandard. So you are, whether you like it or not, part of that problem. And I know that's really hard to hear, but that is actually the truth. And that's not for me to say, I need you. I don't. But you need to show up for yourself in your honesty and your integrity, that you promise to do no harm. And it's inadvertently causing mass harm, huge harm. Someone said to me, you don't speak on behalf of me. No, I don't. Don't follow me then.
Mm,
That's okay. You're the 33%.
yeah,
But there's going to be at least 40 to 50% that will understand what I'm saying. And it's those people that have got to come forward and start asking questions.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your honesty, your transparency, for giving such value over this last hour and such education for people. Because, as I say, sitting outside of the medical profession, it's really hard to get that understanding. And I know we've seen lots of people, not lots of people, some doctors speak out, Dr. Sam White, etc. And we have some kind of understanding from that, but not. It's really, you've gone quite into it in terms of what it was like, not just about the jabs, but also about how just the whole thing is. So I really appreciate that, and I know the audience will too. And we all wish you an absolute, absolute best in what you're doing now. And I know you're going to win. So good luck.
Thanks, Mel. That's great. Thank you.